The judge called me a naive old man, lost in the past. He said it right before he tried to steal my life. My daughter just watched. They thought they had broken me, but my late wife had one last lesson to teach them all. The courtroom air was thin and cold. It smelled like lemon polish and old dry paper, the kind of air that sucks the warmth right out of you. I sat at the defense table, my hands folded tight. They were teachers' hands, 65 years old, used to chalk and the weight of history books. Now they just trembled against the hard, polished wood. If you're listening to this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not alone, because sitting in that room, I felt smaller than I ever had in my life. I looked around the sterile room, high ceilings, the imposing judge's bench, the flags standing stiffly. It was all designed to intimidate, to make you feel small, and it worked. But the real intimidation wasn't the room, it was the people in it. Across the aisle, maybe 10 feet away, sat my daughter Jessica, my only child, the little girl who used to curl up in my lap while I read her stories about dragons and far-off kingdoms. We spent hours lost in those worlds. Now she wouldn't even look at me. Her gaze was fixed on the wall just above my head, her face pale, emotionless. It was like looking at a stranger wearing my daughter's face. Beside her sat David, her husband of 5 years. He was a financial advisor, sharp, ambitious, always calculating. He wore a suit that looked like it cost more than I made in 3 months at the Reading Nook. That was the bookstore my late wife Eleanor and I had poured our hearts into. David was tapping his expensive pen against a legal pad. Tap, 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 impatient, confident. He looked like a man waiting for a bus he knew was on time. They were suing me for conservatorship. They wanted the court to declare me incompetent. They wanted to take control of my life. My house, the bungalow Eleanor and I saved for 20 years to buy, the Reading Nook, my pension, everything. They claimed they were saving me, but I knew the truth. They were robbing me blind. Your Honor, David's lawyer stood up, a sleek man named Mr. Evans. His voice was smooth, dripping with false concern. We are here today out of a deep love and concern for Mr. Michael Peterson. I gripped the edge of the table until my knuckles turned white. Love. The word felt like ash in my mouth, but sadly, Evans continued, love must sometimes be practical. Mr. Peterson is in decline. His cognitive faculties are fading. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. Heavy, damning. He is forgetting appointments, misplacing funds, and becoming increasingly paranoid. It wasn't true, I was fine. Yes, I was lonely since Eleanor passed 3 years ago. The silence in the house was deafening. Maybe I was slower, but my mind was sharp. I still did the crossword every morning. But they didn't care about the truth. They only cared about the narrative they built. Furthermore, Evans continued, his business, this Reading Nook, is a sentimental attachment, but it is a financial drain. It is hemorrhaging money. The accounting is a disaster. He shook his head sadly. A performance for the judge. My clients are simply trying to protect Mr. Peterson from himself, to ensure he is cared for properly in his twilight years. Cared for. I knew what that meant. Selling the bookstore, selling my house, clearing out 40 years of memories, and putting me away. Golden years retirement. The glossy brochure David had left on my kitchen counter. Sterile, depressing, a prison with better landscaping. I looked up at the judge, Judge Robert Harris, a large man with a flushed face. He kept checking his watch, impatient. I knew his reputation. He and David were members of the same exclusive downtown club. They played golf together. This was not a fair fight. It was an ambush. And I was the target. My lawyer, a young public defender named Sarah Jenkins, stood up. She was earnest, but clearly overwhelmed by David's high-powered team. She looked like a drowning swimmer fighting a tsunami. Your Honor, Sarah said, her voice slightly too high. The claims against Mr. Peterson are grossly exaggerated. He is a respected retired teacher. Judge Harris sighed loudly. He shuffled the papers in front of him, already bored. He didn't even look at Sarah. Miss Jenkins, he droned, sentiment does not pay the bills. The documentation provided paints a very bleak picture. Unpaid invoices, bounced checks. The documentation David provided. That was the core of the trap. The accounting issues were directly caused by Mr. Wallace, Sarah protested. She pointed a finger at David. He didn't flinch. He offered to help Mr. Peterson modernize his bookkeeping last year, Sarah argued. He insisted on switching everything from the simple ledger system to a complex online system. She paused, her voice trembling with frustration. That is precisely when the confusion began. Miss Peterson was locked out of his own accounts. I remembered that day. David sitting in my office, all smiles and promises. Michael, let me bring you into the 21st century. This old paper system is holding you back. I trusted him. He was family. That was my first mistake, and it was about to cost me everything. Objection. Evans sprang to his feet. Speculation. The defendant is trying to blame his own incompetence on my client's generosity. Sustained. Judge Harris banged his gavel. The sound echoed, a gunshot to the heart of my defense. Ms. Jenkins, stick to the facts. I will not tolerate baseless accusations. The facts were buried under a mountain of manipulated spreadsheets David had created. It was a trap, perfectly laid. The first day of the hearing was a systematic dismantling of my life. They picked apart my routines, my habits, my very existence. They brought in a doctor, Dr. Alan Thorne, a geriatric specialist. I'd seen him only once. David had insisted I go for a routine checkup. The office was cold. Dr. Thorne was colder. He didn't examine me. He assessed me. He rattled off a list of 20 words, rapid fire. Then he talked about the weather for 10 minutes. Then he asked me to repeat the words. I was nervous, stressed. I missed 5 of them. He scribbled on his notepad, a small, satisfied smile on his face. I knew right then, this wasn't a checkup. It was a setup. Now Dr. Thorne sat on the stand, clearly paid handsomely for his testimony. Dr. Thorne, your professional opinion? Evans asked. Thorne adjusted his glasses. He looked right at the judge. Mr. Peterson shows unequivocal signs of early-onset dementia. Dementia. The word hit me like a physical blow. The room spun slightly. They weren't just calling me incompetent, they were calling me crazy. Then came the moment I had dreaded most. The moment I prayed wouldn't happen. The plaintiffs called Jessica Wallace, my daughter. She took the stand. This was the real betrayal, the one that cut deepest. She walked slowly to the witness box. Her heels clicked on the polished floor. Click, click, click. Like nails being hammered into my coffin. She raised her hand and swore to tell the truth. My heart ached. I just wanted her to look at me, just once. But she didn't. Miss Wallace, Evans began gently, his tone sympathetic. This must be very difficult for you. Please describe your father's behavior over the last year. The courtroom was silent, waiting. I held my breath. Maybe she would tell the truth. Maybe she would defend me. Maybe she would remember who I was. Jessica looked down at her hands. She twisted the expensive diamond ring David had bought her. Round and round, a nervous habit. The silence stretched, thin and tight. I could hear the buzzing of the fluorescent lights overhead. She glanced at David. He gave a tiny, almost invisible nod. Her voice was soft, barely a whisper. But every word felt like a shard of glass. He's changed, she murmured. Ever since Mom died, he's just lost. Lost. Was that how she saw me? He gets angry when we try to help, she continued. He's suspicious of everyone. She paused, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. He accused David, who has done nothing but support us, of stealing from him. My throat burned. I swallowed hard. I wouldn't let them see me break. Not here. I looked at her, begging her with my eyes to stop. She looked away. That silence cut deeper than any word. I love my father, Your Honor, Jessica said, her voice cracking. I just want him to be safe. I don't want him to end up alone and broke because he's too stubborn to accept help. Maybe she believed the lies David had fed her. The thought that my own daughter saw me this way, as a pathetic, confused old man, was a betrayal that shattered my soul. The final blow came at the end of the day. Evans stood up, adjusting his tie, victorious. Your Honor, he said, his voice booming, we file an emergency motion to freeze all of Mr. Peterson's assets pending the final judgment. Sarah Jenkins gasped beside me. Your Honor, that's excessive. Given the evidence of gross mismanagement, Evans claimed. Smooth as silk, we are concerned Mr. Peterson might try to liquidate funds in a moment of confusion. Confusion, the word they used every time they wanted to take something from me. If you freeze the accounts, I can't pay my suppliers. I burst out, unable to stay silent. The words erupted from me, raw, desperate. I can't order new books. I'll be ruined. I was shouting. I knew I shouldn't, but they were strangling me. Judge Harris looked down at me. A smirk played on his lips. A cruel, condescending look. The look of a man who held all the power and knew it. Mr. Peterson, he boomed, given the overwhelming evidence of your cognitive decline, the court sees this as a necessary precaution. He paused, letting the humiliation sink in. You should be grateful we are protecting you from yourself. Grateful for being robbed. He wasn't done. He looked around the courtroom, as if inviting everyone to share in the joke. Frankly, Mr. Peterson, your attachment to this failing hobby shop is touching. In a quaint sort of way. Hobby shop. He dismissed Eleanor's dream with a single word. But it's also incredibly naive, he continued. The world of business is complex. It requires sharp minds, modern strategies. He leaned forward, delivering the final insult. You are clinging to the past, lost in your books while the world moves months. You should be grateful your family is willing to clean up the mess you've made. Naive, the word echoed in the courtroom, hanging in the air like a verdict. David smiled, a small, satisfied twist of his lips. Jessica looked relieved. Judge Harris banged the gavel. Motion granted. Assets frozen. We will reconvene on Friday for the final ruling. Just like that, I was cut off. 40 years of teaching, 20 years of building the bookstore, a lifetime of work, dismissed as the actions of a naive old man. The courtroom doors closed behind me. The sound heavy and final. I was ruined. I walked back to the Ridding Nook. The November air bit at my face. The streets were busy, people rushing home, living their lives, oblivious to the fact that mine had just shattered. When I opened the door, the little bell above it chimed. A sound that usually brought comfort. Today it sounded mournful, like a funeral bell. The smell of old paper, coffee, and Eleanor's lavender filled the air. I looked around at the shelves overflowing with books, the photographs of Eleanor organizing the poetry section. Her smile bright and vibrant. This place was our dream, her legacy. I sat in the dark bookstore. The silence pressed in on me, heavy, suffocating. I felt utterly defeated. They had won. The system was rigged. The judge was bought. I had no way to fight back. I looked in the reflection of the dark computer screen, the screen David had installed. I saw an old man, tired, beat.
Maybe they were right. Maybe I was naive. Maybe it was time to give up.
The fight drained out of me. I had never felt so alone. I picked up the phone. I called Robert, an old friend. He used to be our family lawyer before he retired. I told him everything. The words tumbled out in a rush of anger and despair. Michael, this is a disgrace, Robert said, his voice tight with anger. Harris has always been arrogant, but this is blatant bias. And David? I asked, my voice hollow. He's a shark, Michael, Robert said grimly. I warned you. He saw your assets, not your daughter. I know, Robert. I should have listened. The regret was bitter. What do I do now? They froze everything. You need leverage, Michael, Robert said firmly. Something on David, something so undeniable that Harris can't ignore it. Leverage? Dirt, Robert clarified. Dig into his past. Where there's this much greed, there's usually fraud. People like David always cut corners. Leverage. I needed a weapon, but I had no idea where to look. I spent the next 2 days trying to investigate David. I was a history teacher, not a detective. Wallace Financial Strategies. Everything seemed legitimate on the surface. I hit dead ends everywhere. I didn't know how to look for fraud. I was drowning in a world I didn't understand. Meanwhile, the bookstore was suffocating. I couldn't order new releases. My suppliers were calling. Mr. Henderson, my main distributor and my neighbor, Called on Wednesday, usually friendly. Today, his voice was cold. Michael, I need payment, Henderson demanded. I have a business to run. My accounts are frozen, John, I explained, shame washing over me. Just give me a few days. I heard about the conservatorship, Henderson said, his tone hardening. I can't extend credit. If I don't get payment by Friday, I'm cutting you off. Permanently. He hung up. The walls were closing in. David wasn't just attacking me. He was destroying my reputation. I went to the police station. I felt ridiculous. I asked to speak to someone about financial crimes. I was introduced to Detective Miller, a tired-looking man with coffee stains on his tie. He listened impatiently as I explained the accounting system, the lockout, the conservatorship. Mr. Peterson, Detective Miller sighed. He rubbed his eyes. This sounds like a civil matter, a family dispute. We don't handle conservatorships. But he manipulated my accounts. I insisted. He's trying to steal my business. Do you have proof of embezzlement? Miller asked. Money transferred to his personal accounts. I can't access the accounts to get proof. Miller shook his head. Then I can't help you. Right now, it's just your word against his. He dismissed me. I was invisible, just another confused old man, exactly as David had painted me. I walked out of the station, the despair settling deep in my bones. Friday was 2 days away. That afternoon, I saw Mr. Henderson getting into his car across the street. I rushed over. John, please, I begged. I need more time. You know me. Henderson looked nervous. He glanced around, as if afraid someone might see us talking. Michael, I can't, he whispered. It's not just the money. What is it, John? Talk to me. Henderson leaned closer. His voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. David, and those men he meets with? The property developers.
No, I'm the land your bookstore is on. Michael.
My stomach twisted. The land? They want to tear down this whole block, Henderson explained. Build condos. High-end condos. They've been planning this for months. Condos. They wanted to erase the reading nook for condos. The first secret was out. They promised me a payout if I helped squeeze you, Henderson admitted, shame written on his face. They needed you out quickly. The conservatorship was the fastest way. I'm sorry, Michael. It was worse than I thought. It wasn't just greed. It was a calculated takeover. The conspiracy. I went back to the bookstore, the information churning in my mind. I felt sick. I sat in the dark. I was defeated. Then my phone buzzed. An email. I almost ignored it. But the subject line grabbed my attention. David Wallace. Danger. The email was from an anonymous address. Mr.
Peterson, you don't know me.
I used to work for Wallace Financial Strategies. I know about the conservatorship. It's a cover. I stopped breathing. I kept reading. David is desperate. His firm is collapsing. It's a Ponzi scheme. He's been stealing from his clients for years. It's all about to blow up. He needs your assets to cover his tracks before he disappears. The condo deal is his golden parachute. Be careful. He is dangerous. A Ponzi scheme. The second secret. My blood ran cold. David wasn't just greedy. He was a criminal facing serious jail time. And I was his bailout plan. The stakes were suddenly much higher. This wasn't just about the bookstore. It was about survival. I tried to reply to the email. It bounced back. The address was gone. I forwarded the email to Robert and Sarah. Sarah called immediately. Michael, if this is true, it changes everything. But an anonymous email isn't proof. We need evidence. Evidence I didn't have. That evening, David showed up at the bookstore. He didn't knock. He walked in like he owned the place. The charm was gone. His eyes were cold, hard. Michael, he said, his voice low. I heard you went to the police. Stupid move. My heart hammered in my chest. He knew. I know about the Ponzi scheme, David, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The fear was real now. David froze. His face paled. For a moment the mask slipped. I saw the panic in his eyes. The desperation of a cornered animal. Then he recovered. He laughed, a cold, harsh sound. Ponzi scheme? See? This is the paranoia Dr. Thorne talked about. You're delusional, old man. He walked towards me, invading my space. Let's talk about the liquidation sale, he said, changing the subject. We need to clear out this clutter. He picked up a rare edition of Hemingway, handled it carelessly. He leaned closer. His cologne was expensive and overwhelming. The air crackled with tension. Cooperate, Michael, he said, his tone condescending. Accept the move to Golden Years. The premium package. It has a library. Get out of my store, I whispered, my voice trembling with rage. His eyes narrowed. The mask of civility shattered. If you keep fighting me, Michael, he hissed, his voice low and venomous, you won't end up at Golden Years. You'll end up in a state-run facility, strapped to a bed, wondering what happened to your mind. He leaned closer. I can make that happen with a single phone call. The threat was clear, chilling. He was willing to destroy my sanity to save himself. I couldn't breathe. The casual cruelty of it stole the air from my lungs. He meant every word. He left. I locked the door behind him, my hands shaking. I was terrified. But I was also angry. Fiercely angry. I couldn't let him win, but I was running out of options and time. The next morning, a surprise visitor arrived at my house. The doorbell rang. I opened it to find an older woman with sharp eyes and expensive luggage standing on my porch. Michael, she said, her voice dry as old leaves. It's been a long time. It was Aunt Clara, Eleanor's older sister. We hadn't spoken in years. They were estranged. Clara was cold, critical, and wealthy. Clara, what are you doing here? I asked, confused. I heard about the conservatorship, she said, walking past me into the house without waiting for an invitation. She looked around the living room, disdain on her face. Jessica called me. It seems you're making a mess of things, Michael. As usual. Clara always thought I wasn't good enough for Eleanor. I'm not making a mess, I defended myself. David is trying to steal everything. He's a criminal. David is a successful businessman. Clara dismissed me. He understands the value of assets. Eleanor always worried about your lack of ambition. This bookstore, it's a foolish hobby. Her words stung. They echoed Judge Harris. Naive. Foolish. Eleanor loved this bookstore, I said, anger rising in my chest. Eleanor was brilliant, Clara agreed. But she was also sentimental. She protected you, Michael, sometimes too much. She paused. A strange look crossed her face. A flicker of memory. She always had contingency plans. Clara murmured, almost to herself. She was looking at the bookshelf, but seeing something else. She was obsessed with security. Firewalls, she called them. Firewalls. The word sparked something in my memory, a faint echo of a conversation I hadn't understood at the time. A third secret was hiding somewhere. What do you mean, firewalls? I pressed. Clara shook her head, the moment passing. The cold mask returned. Nothing. Just an old woman rambling. The point is, Michael, you need help. Stop fighting them. She left soon after, but her words lingered. Firewalls. Contingency plans. Did Eleanor know? Did she plan for this? I was exhausted, desperate. I needed Eleanor. That night, I wandered into the study we shared, the heart of our home. I opened her closet. Her clothes still held a faint scent of her perfume, lavender and vanilla. I was looking for comfort. I was looking for answers. But I found something else, something hidden, at the very back of the closet. Under a pile of old photo albums and quilts, I found a heavy, leather-bound journal. It wasn't her diary. This was different. Formal, it looked like a ledger. I carried it to the desk. My hands trembled as I opened it. Eleanor's familiar, elegant handwriting filled the pages. Detailed financial entries, investments, plans. Eleanor handled everything. I trusted her completely. I never questioned her. I started reading. And the more I read, the colder I felt. The entries from around the time Jessica married David. Eleanor's tone shifted. Cautious, guarded. October 15, 2020, David offered to handle our investments. Insistent. Aggressive. He talks about leveraging assets in ways that make me uncomfortable. I declined. There is a coldness behind his charm, a hunger that worries me. Michael doesn't see it. She knew. Eleanor had seen it from the beginning. January 10th, 2021. I consulted with Robert privately. David is pushing Jessica for a loan to start his new firm. I fear he sees us not as family but as a bank. We need protection. I need to put up firewalls. Firewalls. The word Clara used. The word Eleanor used. Then the entries changed abruptly. Eleanor got sick. The cancer was sudden, merciless. Her handwriting became weaker. But her determination was fierce. March 5, 2021. The diagnosis is terminal. Months. My mind is racing. I must finalize the plan. Michael is too trusting, too kind. He will not see the danger until it is too late. I must protect him. Tears blurred my vision. She was dying, and she was worried about me. The last entry was dated just a week before she died. Her hand must have been shaking, but the words were clear. April 2021. It is done. The paperwork is signed, filed, and secured. The Oakhaven legacy is safe. The key is behind the wedding photo in the hall. Forgive me, Michael, for the secrecy. It was the only way. I love you. Oakhaven legacy. I had never heard of it. The final secrecy. A sharp pang of hurt cut through my grief. Why hadn't she told me? Did she think I was naive too? But as I read the words again, I realized her secrecy wasn't a lack of trust in me. It was a profound understanding of the greed of others. It was an act of fierce love. She was protecting me from the storm she saw coming. I rushed to the hallway. My heart pounded. The large, silver-framed wedding photo. Eleanor and I, smiling, young. I carefully took it off the wall. Taped to the back of the frame, hidden from view, was a small brass key. A safety deposit box key. Eleanor had one last secret. And it was about to change everything. The next morning I was at the bank when the doors opened. My hands were shaking as I opened the safety deposit box. Inside, a thick stack of legal documents and a single white envelope addressed to me. I sat in the small, private room and read the letter. My dearest Michael, if you are reading this, it means the danger I feared has come to pass. I know you must be confused, hurt. Please, trust me one last time. When I realized how sick I was, I knew I had to protect the life we built. David is a greedy man, Michael. He is dangerous. Tears streamed down my face. But these weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief and awe. My brilliant, fierce Eleanor. If this story proves that actions always have consequences, let us know by hitting like and subscribing right now. We need your help to keep sharing these vital life lessons. Abranon. Read on, the letter explained everything. The firewalls, the fortress. I did not just create a trust, Michael. I restructured everything. The documents detailed the formation of Oakhaven Legacy Holdings, LLC, a legally recognized corporate entity, LLC, limited liability company. I sold our house and the reading nook to this company before I passed. Was the sole owner and managing director of Oakhaven Legacy. My mind reeled. I didn't own my house. I didn't own the bookstore. The company grants you lifetime tenancy, and the house and exclusive operational rights to the bookstore. You run the business, you live in the house, but they are not your personal assets. Therefore, they cannot be taken from you. It was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Furthermore, I moved the bulk of our savings and your pension deposits into an annuity managed by Oakhaven Legacy. It pays you a monthly stipend. It is untouchable by any conservatorship or lawsuit. The final line was underlined. They can't take what is not yours to give. Fight them, Michael. I clutched the letter to my chest. A strangled sob escaped my lips. She had seen the future, and she had built a fortress around me. Brick by invisible brick, right under my nose. While I was busy organizing the history section, a wave of relief washed over me, followed immediately by a cold, hard anger. David and Jessica had underestimated me, but more importantly, they had underestimated Eleanor. I finally had the weapon I needed, and I was going to use it. Robert flew into town, immediately. He met me at my kitchen table. He looked over the papers, his eyes widening in astonishment. A slow smile spread across his face. "Michael," he breathed, tapping the documents. "This is brilliant. It's absolutely airtight. They have nothing, absolutely nothing. The entire basis of their case is gone." The relief was overwhelming, but it wasn't enough. "I want them to know," I said, my voice hardening, the anger solidifying into resolve. "I want them to understand what they tried to do and how completely they failed." "We should file these documents immediately," Robert advised. "Force a dismissal before the hearing." "It's the safe move." "No," I refused. "I want to confront them publicly, in the courtroom where they humiliated me." "Michael, it's risky," Robert warned. "Harris will be furious. He might try to accuse you of fraud." "I didn't hide anything," I said.
"I genuinely didn't know."
I needed this. I needed to reclaim my dignity. I needed to honor Eleanor's fight. The night before the final hearing, Jessica came to the house. The first time in months, she looked nervous, clutching her expensive purse. "Dad," she said, her voice trembling, "I wanted to talk to you before tomorrow." She walked over to the fireplace. "David and we want you to know that we forgive you," she said, "for the accusations, for the fighting. We know you're confused. Forgive me." The arrogance was staggering. "We found a wonderful place for you," she continued. "The premium suite at Golden Years. You can move in on Monday. A gilded cage, a comfortable prison sentence." They still thought they had won. "Jessie," I said softly, looking at the daughter I loved, but no longer recognized. "Why are you doing this? Why are you letting David do this?" "Because we love you, Dad. Can't you see?" Her voice rose, tears welling in her eyes. "You're falling apart. We are trying to help you before you lose everything." She started crying, genuine tears this time. She truly believed the narrative David had constructed. Looking at her, seeing her pain, I felt a desperate urge to tell her the truth, to show her the documents, to tell her about the Ponzi scheme, to break through the wall David had built around her. I wanted my daughter back, but I knew she wouldn't believe me. She was too far gone. I had to hide the truth from my own daughter to protect her from the fallout of David's actions. It broke my heart, but it was the only way. "I can't do that, Jessie," I said, my voice heavy with sadness. "I can't let you take what your mother and I built." Her face hardened. The tears stopped instantly. The cold mask returned. "Then you leave us no choice." She turned and walked out. The door clicked shut behind her. I stood alone in the quiet house. I thought about the consequences. David's life would be ruined. His crimes exposed. Jessica's world would shatter. Was I doing the right thing? A father is supposed to protect his child, but a father is also supposed to teach his child about consequences, about integrity. By choosing greed over love, Jessica had made her choice. I had to honor Eleanor. Justice had to prevail, no matter the emotional cost. Friday morning, bright and clear, I put on my best suit, the one I wore to Eleanor's funeral. I placed the documents in an old, worn leather briefcase, my father's briefcase. I walked into the courtroom. The atmosphere was light, celebratory on the plaintiff's side. David and Jessica were whispering, smiling. Evans radiated confidence. They thought they had won. They were about to find out how wrong they were. Judge Harris entered. The room fell silent. He looked cheerful, eager to finalize his friend's victory and get to his afternoon golf game. "Good morning," he boomed. "We are here today for the final ruling in the matter of the Peterson conservatorship." He picked up the judgment. He started reading. The words washed over me. It was exactly as David predicted. The court found me incompetent. The assets, the house, the bookstore, the pension, were to be transferred immediately to David and Jessica. He was nearing the end, the final paragraphs that would seal my fate. He paused. He looked down at me over the top of his reading glasses. His expression was one of utter contempt. Pity. The silence in the courtroom was heavy, expectant. "Before I finalize this ruling," Judge Harris said, his voice dripping with condescension, I feel compelled to offer a final word to the defendant. The room was completely still. Everyone was watching me. Mr. Peterson, Harris continued, savoring the moment. Your behavior has been characterized by stubbornness and denial. He chuckled. A dry, unpleasant sound. I stand by my assessment. You are a naive old man, lost in the past, unable to navigate the complexities of the modern world. The world has moved on, Mr. Peterson. He raised the gavel, ready to finalize my destruction. It is the judgment of this court that the conservatorship is granted, effective immediately. I stood up. My heart was pounding, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs, but my hands were steady. Mr. Peterson, sit down. Judge Harris barked, his cheerful demeanor vanishing instantly. The ruling has been made. You are in contempt of court. I ignored him. I walked slowly to the center of the courtroom. I looked at Jessica. Her smile faltered. Then at David. His eyes narrowed, a flicker of fear crossing his face. The room was deathly silent. I took a deep breath. My voice was clear and strong. Your Honor, there seems to be a fundamental misunderstanding regarding the assets in question. There is no misunderstanding, Mr. Peterson. Judge Harris snapped, though his voice was less certain now. The inventory is clear. Yes, I said slowly, deliberately. But you see, Judge, those assets do not belong to me. David laughed out loud, a sharp, nervous bark. Your Honor, this is pathetic. He is clearly delusional. I assure you, I am not delusional, I said, my voice steady, unwavering. I locked eyes with David. They belonged to Oakhaven Legacy Holdings, LLC. The silence that followed was absolute, stunned. David froze. His smirk vanished. He understood the implications immediately. The impenetrable wall those letters, LLC, represented. Judge Harris leaned forward, frowning. What are you talking about? Oakhaven Legacy? It is a limited liability company, established 3 years ago by my late wife, Eleanor Peterson. I explained, my voice ringing with the finality of truth. She sold the house and the bookstore to the company before she passed away. I opened the briefcase and pulled out the thick stack of documents. The deeds of sale, the corporate filings, the state seal. I have lifetime tenancy and operational rights. I continued, my voice gaining strength. But I do not own them. The company owns them, and the company is not under review for conservatorship. Evans rushed forward, looking frantic, his sleek composure shattered. Your Honor, if this is true, this is fraud. He hid this from the court. This is contempt. I didn't hide anything, I said, holding up Eleanor's letter. I discovered this 2 days ago. My wife arranged it in secret to protect me. I looked directly at David. She knew, Mr. Evans. She knew exactly what kind of man her son-in-law was. David was staring at the documents, his face ashen, his world collapsing around him. All his scheming, his manipulation, his arrogance, shattered by the foresight of a woman he had dismissed as irrelevant. Judge Harris snatched the document. He flipped through the pages, searching for a flaw, a mistake. As he read, the color drained from his face. He understood his ruling was worthless. He had awarded property that was legally untouchable. He had been publicly humiliated in his own courtroom by the naive old man he had mocked. This, he stammered, his voice weak, devoid of authority. This changes the nature of the case. It nullifies the case. Robert corrected him, standing up now. His voice strong, confident. We move for immediate dismissal of the petition. The courtroom erupted in chaos. Reporters in the gallery sensed the drama and surged forward. Judge Harris slumped back in his chair, speechless. He weakly banged the gavel, but no one listened. The power had shifted. David turned to Jessica, his face twisted in a mask of rage. You didn't know about this, he hissed, his voice venomous. Jessica was staring at me, her eyes wide with shock, confusion, and the dawning realization of what she had done. The cold mask crumbled away. No, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Mom never told me. We get nothing, David spat. He grabbed his briefcase and stormed toward the exit, pushing past the reporters. But he didn't get far. Standing by the courtroom doors was Detective Miller. He had received the anonymous tip from Sarah, and had been waiting. "Listen, Wallace," Miller said, his voice loud, cutting through the chaos. "I need to ask you some questions about your firm's investment strategies, and the disappearance of several $1 million in client funds." David froze. The reporters swarmed him. His collapse was public and complete. The conservatorship petition was dismissed. With prejudice, Judge Harris, facing immediate scrutiny from the Judicial Review Board over his undeniable bias, quietly retired. His reputation was tarnished. David's Ponzi scheme unraveled quickly. He was arrested later that day. The property developers vanished like smoke. The story of the naive old man and his brilliant wife became a local legend. But the victory felt hollow. I had saved my legacy, but I had lost my daughter. Months passed. The seasons changed. I went back to the bookstore. The little bell chimed cheerfully when I opened the door. The smell of old paper and coffee was a comfort. The annuity payments resumed. The bookstore thrived. The community rallied around me, their support overwhelming. Aunt Clara sent a check. A substantial amount, with a brief note. "Eleanor was indeed brilliant. My apologies, Michael." I was okay, but the silence in the house was still heavy. One rainy afternoon in the spring, the bell chimed. I looked up from the counter. It was Jessica. She stood there, dripping wet, looking tired, thin. The expensive clothes and jewelry were gone. She wore simple jeans and a sweater that looked familiar. One that used to belong to Eleanor. We stared at each other for a long time. The silence, stretching between us, heavy with unspoken words, shared pain. "I left him," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "The divorce is final. When he realized the money was gone, he showed his true colors. Mom was right about him. She was right about everything." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry, Dad. I was so greedy. I believed him when he said you were sick. I let him turn me against you." She took a hesitant step forward. "I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if you can ever forgive me." I looked at her. I saw the little girl who loved stories about dragons, but I also saw the woman who had stood in court and called me incompetent. The relationship was broken. Trust, once shattered, is incredibly hard to rebuild. "I don't know either, Jesse," I said softly. The words were honest, and they hurt us both. I couldn't offer her easy forgiveness. Not yet. The wounds were too deep. She nodded, tears falling freely now. She looked around the bookstore, at the pictures of her mother, at the life she had tried to destroy. Can I just sit here for a while?" she asked, her voice small. I nodded. I walked behind the counter and started making a cup of tea. The road ahead would be long, uncertain, but it was a start. I looked at the picture of Eleanor on my desk. I touched her smiling face, a profound gratitude swelling in my heart. "You did it, Eleanor," I whispered. "You protected us. I was an old man. My methods were outdated, and I loved the past. But I wasn't naive. I knew the value of integrity, the importance of love, and the power of foresight. And in the end, that was the only legacy that truly mattered." The reading nook was still standing, and so was I. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot because your time matters.